So this morning, something strange happened. I was feeding my toddler breakfast, getting him ready for school as well, right? Trying to pack his lunch and trying to pack snacks and all that. So I told him, go and sit down, take, your food and eat your food. But he was not focused because he's always taking one bite and wanting to play with toys. And I'm like, this is not the time, focus on your food. So I told him, Judah, go take one more bite. And once you're done, bring your plate to the kitchen. And he said, no, I don't care. And in my mind, I'm like, who are you talking to? It came to me as a shock. I was like, what did you say? He said, I don't care. Mind you, this boy is 3 turning 4. And my husband was like, what did you say? He said it again, I don't care. And I'm like, okay, this is the first time I've heard my child say something totally out of pocket. I mean, children are children, right? They say random stuff. But this is the first time I've heard him say something rude, for lack of a better word. And, I corrected him immediately. I said, you don't say that to mommy. You cannot say that to me, right? And the type of parenting I'm doing is gentle parenting, but it's gentle parenting with a little bit of Africanized. So, I believe that you have to speak to children, correct them, but I believe that sometimes you have to understand your child and give them the appropriate punishment for their age, if that makes sense. So obviously I corrected him. I said, okay, so you can't talk to mommy like that. And I was very firm. But the moral lesson of this story is, as Christians, when you're raising your child, the truth is that the best that you can do is prepare them for the outside world. And what do I mean? My husband and I don't think that we've ever spoken to each other like that in the presence of our kids. So for a fact, it's definitely, he heard it from school or from his friend or someone outside the house. And that's why it's super important to pay attention to your children, listen to them, hear what they say, because when you're raising your child, you completely forget that you're going to mix with other people. And so don't be afraid, because I actually for a little bit had a little bit of fear in my heart, like, oh my gosh, I'm doing my best to raise this boy well. Why would he speak to me like that? I mean, he's a child, obviously. So, but also I was thinking, as he gets older, he's going to be exposed to more things, and these are things that we're going to have to deal with as parents. And so we shouldn't be afraid. Your responsibility is to pray and raise them in such a way that they will be light in darkness. And that's why it's super important that you are intentional about parenting. I believe that God has given us all that we need to raise godly seeds. We just have to make sure that we're putting in the effort and we are paying attention, so we don't miss it when our children start picking up very inappropriate behaviors. And obviously make sure that the core of your environment or the core of your community are godly people as well. And so that's why it's very important that you raise your child in an environment where they can connect with fellow believers. That's why going to church is important. That's why having godly families or godly friends who are raising kids is very important as well. So I wanted to share and say, God help us as parents. So